Welcome back to another riveting episode of Music Business After Dark. Now, before I get into the heavy lifting tonight, I want to take a minute to tip my hat to a few folks that have really helped me out by publishing episodes of Music Business After Dark on their sites. First, Indie on the Move has premiered a few episodes. And if you don't know what Indie on the Move is or what they do, I really hope you'll check them out. Now, they're not sponsors. They're not paying me to say this, but I've used Indie on the Move for years to help find venues to book my clients. And I've booked many gigs through Indie on the Move. So I hope you'll go and create a profile, follow them, and just check out all the useful information that they provide. And once you do that, hit me up and let me know if you've found Indie on the Move as useful as I have. Secondly, American Songwriter magazine was kind enough to exclusively premiere my episodes on copyright and on publishing deals, issues that are clearly pertinent to the songwriting community. American Songwriter has featured my clients many times over the years, and they provide wonderful journalism in the songwriting and publishing space. Please help me return the favor by following them. Links to both Indie on the Move and American Songwriter are in the description below. Okay, gratitude given. Now, on to tonight's discussion. Now, for these next couple episodes, these aren't necessarily questions I've been asked by young artists and songwriters, but these are topics that I think are really important to help you understand the state of the music industry and the evolution of the music industry. Because I feel that the more you understand where we are and where we came from, the more likely you are to be able to build a successful career. So the next episode, I'm going to talk about technology and how technological advances have changed the face of the music business. But tonight's episode is all about consolidation and how corporate consolidation has affected the way that we consume music, market music, distribute music. Okay? Our story begins with the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Don't glaze over here. It's really kind of fascinating, okay? The 1996 Act was a federal act that was designed to bring the laws of the United States up to speed with regard to broadcasting and communications, into the internet age, basically. So there's a lot of things in this act, but the one thing that's in there that I want to talk about tonight created a domino effect that's had drastic effects in the music business. Okay, and here's what it was. Prior to the Telecommunications Act of 1996, a corporation could own no more than 40 radio stations in the United States, and no more than 4 in any given city. Okay, what this act did was lifted that cap, allowing for huge corporations to gobble up as many radio stations as they could across the United States. Now, there are a handful that are really big, but the biggest one by far is a company called iHeart Media. At the time, they were called Clear Channel Communications. They've since rebranded. Now, iHeart owns almost 900 radio stations in the United States. That means that they reach on a monthly basis about 245 million listeners. Okay, let me give this some context for you. In 2018, the population of the United States was 327 million. That's a lot of power for one company to wield, no? Now, an interesting aside right here. As I'm writing and recording this episode, iHeart Media this past week has gone through some drastic corporate changes that are sure to change the face of the music business even more. If you Google iHeart Media employee dislocation, you'll find a lot of articles. They've just laid off what some people are saying is about 1,000 people this past week. And they're moving their entire company to a more AI-based radio company. A lot of people are concerned that this is going to make radio even less personal than it already is. So that saga continues, but I thought it was important to interject that because I'm talking about iHeart and all this big news is happening about the company right now. That tale has yet to be told, but stay focused on it. It's interesting stuff. Okay, so back to our consolidation discussion, okay? Here's where the snowball gets really big. Okay, in the music business, radio is king. Getting songs played on the radio is by far and away the best way to market music. And royalties from radio airplay is still the largest source of income for songwriters and publishers, even in 2020. So that makes radio stations really, really powerful. Now, prior to the consolidation of radio, record companies had teams of promotion people, and it was their job to get songs played on the radio. They would travel the country, visiting every radio station, taking their new music, taking their artists, and trying to get them played. And they spent a lot of money on this marketing, more than they spend on anything else. And as iHeart and other companies like them got bigger and bigger, they began to do a couple of things that really changed this game. Okay? The first thing they did was they shrunk and slowed down playlists. Now that means that what we call top 40 radio, right, where they used to play 40 current songs and a handful of older songs called recurrents, they began to play less and less and less. Some people say it's more like 20 or 25 now. And they would play those songs more often, and they would play them for a longer period of time. That's where we are now. If you listen to the radio much, you know what I mean. If you listen for a while, it doesn't take long for those really popular songs to play again. You might hear them once every hour. Okay? So when a song used to go number 1 in 14 or 16 weeks, prior to consolidation, now, if a song's going to be a number 1 hit, a lot of times it takes 40 or 50 weeks to get there. So when the math homework is done, a radio station might play a third as many songs over the course of a year that they used to play. So the second really important thing now that these radio companies did that affected the music business so much was to centrally program their music. Okay, here's what that means. Before consolidation, the program director, the person that runs the radio station in Chicago, well, that person would make the decisions as to what songs got played on that radio station. But now those decisions are being made on a corporate level and they're being handed down. So at that corporate level, they're deciding, well, these are the songs that we're going to add this week. And we're going to apply those decisions to radio stations all across the country that we own. Okay? So why does this matter? Well, before all this, the folks at record companies had a chance to take a song that might not be an obvious hit. And if they could get it played on a few key stations and the listener reaction was strong, well, then they could use those stories to take that song and get it played on other radio stations that might not have otherwise added it. So we take this X factor out of the equation, and many songs that might have had a chance to be hits are never going to get that chance. See, these corporate decisions are made largely on what we call out research. Okay, and a lot of people in the music industry feel that this call out research is flawed, that it takes the heart, the guts out of decision making when it comes to deciding what songs get played on the radio. So that's what happened at radio. Okay, those are two pretty drastic things. And here's how it affected everyone else. Let's first talk about record companies, okay? If a third as many songs are getting played on the radio in any given year, well, that means that the record companies are only able to bring them a third as many songs in a year. So it only makes sense that they're able to sign a third as many artists to their rosters. With fewer artists to make money, that whacks the hell out of the profits. So what's the result? Where there were 7 major labels and a handful of viable indies prior to consolidation, many went out of business. The big ones all merged together. And today, what we have are 3 major labels and a precious few indies that can sustain. So what about artists? You guessed it. A lot fewer artists getting a chance to hit it big by getting a record deal. Now, those that do, and they have a few hits, well, those songs get a ton of airplay, and it raises their income. They make huge guarantees from touring, and the acts that make it, they make a mountain of money, more than ever before in history. But in this environment, we have the haves and we have the have-nots. So there are fewer seats at this table. Now, if you're at the table, it kicks ass. Fine champagne and caviar, right? But if you're not at the table, well, I hope you like ramen noodles. Now, it doesn't stop there. What about managers? With fewer artists, fewer managers are needed. So management companies began to merge and consolidate. And now we have a handful of really powerful management companies with powerhouse rosters and a ton of political power. But they don't take a lot of chances on unsigned artists. The stakes are simply too high. Songwriters. Here's a scary statistic. And I think I've shared it before in a past vlog. But in Nashville, in the years between 2000 and 2015, the number of songwriters who were able to make a full-time living doing it shrunk by 80%. Now, they didn't shrink to 80%. What that means is if there were 100 people that were able to make a full-time living writing songs, now there are 20. Okay? Fewer artists making fewer records for fewer record companies means that a lot fewer songs are getting recorded. Of course, this means a lot fewer publishers are able to stay in business and sign songwriters too. Keep thinking. What about engineers? What about studio musicians? What about producers? What about studios themselves? Hey, let's keep going. Booking agents? PR people? What about road musicians and road crews? The list just keeps getting longer of people who are no longer able to make a living because of this consolidation. Now, many people refer to the effects of consolidation in the music business as the collapse of the middle class. In other words, we see a small number of artists and the people and the companies associated with them raking in mad cash. And the rest, well, they're scrambling to survive. See, before all this, there was a class of artists that may not have had a slew of huge hits, but they were able to carve out a comfortable living, and they were able to keep a lot of people in business around them. So, middle of this road success in this new age is no longer enough to make good business sense. So if you're an artist that has 3 or 4 hits and then goes cold, well, you fall off the face of the earth. Now, I know it feels like I'm painting a very bleak picture here. The fact is that dollar for dollar, the music business is generating more cash than it ever has before. It just looks a lot different than it used to. Is this a good thing? Well, that's for people like you that are just getting started in the business to determine. All I know is that when you have a great song and a singer that people can relate to delivering it, and it touches people on an emotional level, well, it matters. And as long as people can feel, I don't see this changing. So, my hope is that by understanding all of this, you'll have more knowledge to help you build a good career in the music business. And I'm grateful to you for taking this journey with me. And I hope that if you like this video, if you found it informative, that you'll click on the like button, you'll share this video, you'll subscribe to my channel, and all that good stuff. And did you know that you can book a one-on-one Skype session with me? Well, there's a link to that below, along with many other links that are pertinent to this discussion tonight that I hope you'll find useful. So, stick with me. There's a lot more fun to be had. I don't know if this one was that much fun, but useful. Keep with me. We'll have a lot more discussions to come. Until we meet again, cheers.